I hired a couple of coaches myself, mentors, to really figure this stuff out. Like, how can I get better hold on my day-to-day structure? Because I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a professional, but then I also have my own sort of identity, like that athlete role. I didn't want that to slip because I know that benefits all those other roles, showing up, being healthy, being fit, being confident in who you are and how you're showing up on a day-to-day basis. So that's really when it morphed into this Forged Father movement, because I knew there was other men out there struggling with the same thing.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, folks. It's Audley Stevenson back for another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. You've got it locked to the Audacious Living Podcast, and I appreciate you for being here as we continue our ongoing goal of helping our listeners live their best audacious lives ever. As always, I encourage you to follow us on our social media channels. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the handle The Audacious Pod. And of course, if you're watching this episode on our YouTube channel, then you know we've got that bell down below. All you got to do is tap that ding, 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 and you are immediately connected to all great things audacious related, and you never ever miss out on a brand new episode. Now, there are times in our lives when we need to take action and make some sort of important change. But for whatever reason, we don't. You know, the signs are usually there, but sometimes we miss them. Or we don't recognize that the need to change, it has to happen. And again, you know, this is normal. Every one of us have experienced this at some point or another in our lives. Today's guest is Travis Stoetzel, and he was in a situation whereby his wife wanted him to make some serious changes, and she needed him to show up as a husband and father to support their family, and essentially gave him an ultimatum. This is pretty much all he needed to do to step into his necessary role and become a driven dad, and that's exactly what he had done. You're going to hear from Travis and his story of how he was able to turn his life around and be a better father and husband, plus how he's now helping other fathers do the exact same thing. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with Travis Stoetzel. Enjoy. Hey, Travis, thank you for joining me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's such a pleasure for you to do this. Thanks for taking the time, man. This is awesome.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be on. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having a great conversation, brother.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Again, this is awesome. I pride the kind of conversations and dialogues that we have here on this podcast, because so much of what we do is really encouraging people to live that best audacious life that we talk about, and oftentimes the obstacle or hurdle is how you do that, and you know, every situation is different, every circumstance is not the same, and so it's also recognizing that, you know, there's some things that have to be done differently than others. The path that we're going to talk about is one that fathers take, and as a father myself, I have a great deal of appreciation for topics such as these ones, and you have something called the Forged Father. So perhaps as a starting point, you can sort of fill us in on what the Forged Father is all about and what it's trying to do.
Really, absolutely. So Forged Father, to be honest with you, I started it out of the need to have it myself. So I currently have 4 daughters. And we are expecting our 5th, which is a boy. So our prayers were answered. My wife and I, we're just absolutely speechless, really. We're so excited for that. So We got,
what are the age ranges? The oldest is how old?
so oldest is about ready to turn 9. And then we got a 6-year-old, we got a 4-year-old, and then we got a almost 2-year-old as well. So good little spread there, about 2 years apart.
Good.
For each. And yeah, we're looking forward to having the boy. And fatherhood has just been an amazing journey for me. But I'll tell you, man, when our first daughter was born, it took me a while to figure it out. And so that's really where Forge Father came to be. It was about 8 months in, after our daughter had arrived. And I was just kind of in work mode. So she came around and I took it upon myself. And I think all dads really do this. We really take on that role of, supplying for the family, and we need to build more and more and more. And that's really how I took on the father role. I just got dug into work. I used to run a gym. So I had a gym for about 13 years. And then I was also running my online coaching business as well. And so I really just got lost in the grind. I was leaving the house at 5 a.m. I was getting home at 6, 7, sometimes 8. And I would always tell myself, hey, when I get home from work, I'll spend some quality time with my wife and my daughter. And it always turned into sneaking away to get a little bit more work done, right? Like entrepreneurs know what I'm talking about, business owners. We don't have that 9 to 5. So sometimes we let that bleed out into other things, especially family time. And so it was about 8 months in, wife and I are going to sleep, and my wife actually starts crying in bed. I reach over thinking, oh, well, what's going on here? It's not my fault. Like, it's nothing that I did. I'm doing all the right things. And so long story short, that conversation really was just a big slap in the face for me. And it was a stab in the heart, really, because my wife told me that night, we're second best to the business. Me and Evangeline, that's my oldest daughter's name. We come second to everything else that you do. And I'm actually falling out of love with you. That's what my wife told me at the time. She's like, I'm not sure. Like, you're not the same man that, I married years and years ago. And leading up to that point, there were times where she had brought this up. She's like, hey, you're always busy. You're always working. Oh, I'll get it under control. I'll change. And that just kind of kept getting put off. And it wasn't until that night where we had that deep conversation, it really scared me enough to finally make a change. And that's when I went to the drawing board. I hired a couple of coaches myself, mentors, to really figure this stuff out. Like, how can I get better hold on my day-to-day structure? Because I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a professional, but then I also have my own sort of identity, like that athlete role. I didn't want that to slip, because I know that benefits all those other roles, showing up, being healthy, being fit, being confident in who you are and how you're showing up on a day-to-day basis. So that's really when it morphed into this Forged Father movement, because I knew there was other men out there struggling with the same thing, So fast forward to today, here we are. We've got this this community and this system built together that the focus is to help fill all those roles the best way possible.
Wow.
So.
Wow. To know that again, that hard slap of reality in terms of the verge of losing family and all that you built. Yep. And I guess the irony in that whole is that you're working hard to provide and be that provider, like you said.
Yeah, it is.
But there's oftentimes balance in our lives, and sometimes the pendulum shifts. But it seems in your case it may have shifted too far one way, and that's what put things in jeopardy.
Yeah, you bring that up because I think we oftentimes lie to ourselves, right? And that was the lie that I was telling myself, was I'm grinding hard, so I can justify me being gone so much. I could justify going on these business trips, for masterminds and workshops, to be away from my wife and my newborn daughter. I'm doing it for them. But if we really dig down to the core, that's a lie, and we're just trying to cover it up. And so once we own up to that truth, that's when we can really set ourselves free. But unfortunately, sometimes it takes it, there to be a situation like that happen. Like, thank God, like she didn't slap divorce papers on the table, which that's oftentimes the length that it gets taken for other men. There's many men that have come into the program that I've worked with that was the last straw for them. Is like, well, these divorce papers are on the table now, and now I'm going to make a change. And oftentimes it's a little bit too late. So we don't want to let it get to that point. Or if it's not that, it's doctors telling you that, you got some serious health issues here. You got diabetes, or, heart attack happens, so just as men, we want to push it to the edge, oftentimes a little bit too much. So changing before that time is pretty important.
Some incredible lessons that you're speaking to, and learnings that must be incredible. So talk about what Forge for the Father actually does. I guess so. That's the movement, if you will. Tell me what the nuts and bolts will look like.
So for me, it is just built upon daily disciplines. Okay, so the overall goal, kind of like I mentioned, I mean, most of the men that we work with, their dads, obviously, they're married. Most of them are business owners themselves, so they have a lot of different roles to fulfill. Yep. But then I like this fourth role, which is your athlete role. That is encompassing your health, your fitness, which bleeds into your mindset and really how you show up in all these other areas. And so we're trying to fulfill all those. And so the way that we do that is what I've come up with that I call the core five. It's our daily discipline, non-negotiable system, right? So we got your fitness, okay, we got your fuel, we got your frame, which is your mindset, we got focus, which is the ability to plan, prepare, and really be disciplined with your time. And then that fifth component is family. And so if you think about, you hit all those first four, that frees you up to be fully present and connected with family. And for 100% of the guys that come in, that's what they really want at the end of the day, is to be fully connected and, present with family when they're with family. But they can't do that when their schedule's all over the place and they're dealing with chaos and they're worried about, oh, what do I need to do tomorrow? Or I missed that workout, or, I don't like the way I feel, So it's really geared towards fulfilling that role. So when you show up, that family is just rock solid. Gotcha. Right.
I've heard you reference a phrase I kind of like, cause over comfort. Why don't you talk about that?
Right. So it's interesting because we just talked a little bit about this in our Friday fire call. Every Friday we do a live community, open discussion. And so we're talking about different topics that pop up. And so little tiny things like this, because we all talk about how we want to change. And here we are, it's March 24th already in 2023. We go all the way back to January 1st, right? Everybody and their dogs talking about how this is going to be the year. They're going to make a huge change. They're going to become a different person. Everybody's interested at that point in doing that. Not everybody is committed. Okay. So there's a difference, because once the new year really starts to get rolling and that excitement and, that motivation wears off, if you're just interested in that moment, you're going to slowly drift back to your old habits, your old behaviors, your old ways, the old you.
Yes.
If you're truly committed, you'll find a way to overcome lack of motivation, tired, the boring work, if you will, right? But what really backs that is, we can talk about commitment all day, we can talk about discipline all day, but what really backs it is having a cause. What is your cause in life that you stand for? Like, what are you trying to have an impact on in this world? What are you trying to inspire, right? Because we got cause and then we got comfort.
Yes.
And we know the comforts in life are the things that we give into in the moment, instant gratification, getting those dopamine hits, So if we're looking at cause, and this is one of the first things that we establish in the program, is we tap into what I call an MVP, okay? Mission, vision, purpose.
Okay.
And it's really just helping you get full clarity with what it is that you want. That's your vision. So how do you want to look? How do you want to feel? How are your relationships? How much money do you make? Like, what is your lifestyle? Like, dig deep into your vision.
Right.
Connect that to your purpose. Like, what is your purpose? Why are you doing it? For most of the men that I work with, it's their family. It's, their wife, their kids. They want to be that leader. They want to be the inspiration to them. And then we connect that to the mission. The mission is the daily work. The mission is the actions that we need to take on a day-to-day basis, right? So once we're clear on that, this MVP, we know exactly what it is that we need to do. And so when we find ourselves in these certain moments, and it could be as simple as, okay, alarm's going off, it's 5 a.m., you got to get up, you get to go work out. I'm not going to say that you have to go work out. You get to.
I love that.
You get to go work on your body.
Yep.
You get to go fill your cup, but you don't want to do it. And so a way to master those moments is to remember back to the cause versus comfort. What are you going to choose in this moment? Are you going to choose the comfort of your bed? The comfort of what, 5, 10, 15 more minutes of sleep because you chose to go to bed later than normal? Or are you going to choose cause? And so when you're really deeply connected with the MVP that I was talking about before, you'll ask yourself in those moments, you'll say cause over comfort. Boom. If you're tapped into that MVP and you know what your cause is, you know what you stand for, you know what your values are, your standards, you'll choose cause.
Sure.
And it's not always the easiest thing to do in that moment, right? But it's just like a simple little example of that is like waking up early in the morning, doing that workout when you're not motivated, working on that project late at night when you don't want to. It could be anything. One that I oftentimes laugh about is my wife. She gets these gourmet cookies every week.
Okay.
Every week they get delivered to our house on a Wednesday.
Okay.
And I just have standards for myself that I don't eat like sugar, processed stuff, snacks, that type of stuff during the week, Monday through Friday. I'm like really regimented with my nutrition.
Okay.
I don't follow like a crazy strict type of diet, but I know what I stick to during the week.
Yes.
It's not a struggle for me to pass up those cookies, even when I can smell them like they're freshly baked. And I want to do everything in my body wants to just grab a cookie and have a bite. Right. But I have those standards and I know what my cause is. And the decision is easy at that point.
Yep.
And so it's just repetition. And that's really what guides you over time.
It's very similar. You often you hear people talking about like finding your why, right? What is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? What you're doing is you're taking a step further by really identifying the other thing, the comfort thing that you're trying to move from, right? So and in some respects, when let's say you're making a choice, but so you want to make a choice to a certain degree. Like your choice is, this is what I'm going to take. This is what I'm going to leave behind. Let me move forward. And I sort of like that sort of, I guess I'm really big into sort of mental dialogues and mental conversations. And
it's all about self-talk. Yeah.
That's exactly it, right?
Self-talk, man.
Yeah. And
it's awareness. Yeah. Yeah. Once you really fully start to get into the process, and something that we were talking about earlier today is just, it starts with the self-talk, like being aware of your self-talk. Like, are you talking yourself up? Are you talking yourself down?
Yep.
And oftentimes, we'll be talking ourselves down because when you get fatigued, when you get tired, all those negative type thoughts and emotions start to creep in.
Yes.
Fear, doubt, uncertainty, scarcity, and so they start to develop these stories inside of our mind. Or it could be the other thing where, I like to say we are the world's best bullshitters to ourselves, man. Like, we'll find a way to justify anything, like an excuse, like, oh, you can eat that cookie because you worked out double hard yesterday. So go ahead and, indulge a little bit. Right. And it's just like we lie to ourselves. And so we need to be aware of that self-talk. And that's really key. Number one is awareness of what your attitude is.
Right.
That'll dictate your actions. Right. And so a lot of people are out there operating, they're almost like zombies. They're turned off. They're sedated. They're not aware, and so that's, it's something that you got to work on. It's a skill set. But when you are more aware of it and you have just your own tools to use to overcome that stuff, it's just a game. It's a game that you got to play and win every day.
Yes, I like that. I like that a lot. What is the uncommon man?
Really, it's just an identity. So all of this stuff reinforces what we're trying to create and do. Really, it's just the process is waking up every single day,
Yep.
building yourself into the type of man that you want to gift to the world, right? The type of man that you want to be, that you can look into the mirror and say, hell yeah, I'm 100% satisfied with that man because I know I'm putting in the work.
Right.
I know I'm doing the things that I want to do. And I'm able to gift that man to the world. And I say uncommon man because the things that you need to do to become uncommon are really what separate you, right? It's not that, oh, these people are less than us. It's like the masses are going to give into comfort.
Yes.
The masses are not going to be tapped into an MVP. They're too busy, or they don't have the time or even the want to really get clear on their goals. They're just going to, kind of half-ass it, check the boxes,
Right.
to show up, right? Participation trophy type stuff, right? On the other side, it's like the uncommon man. He knows it's going to be difficult. He seeks discomfort. He chases challenge, right? And that's really what makes the difference. And if you think about why we were put on this earth to begin with, was that just to just be and just to kind of skim through? And no, it wasn't. And so at the end, in the end, when the end does come, like, you want to be able to look back and say, hey, I wasn't average. I wasn't mediocre. I was uncommon, right? So what that is, it's really an identity that we step into that embodies a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about. So certain type of character, that character upholds certain standards, has certain values, has certain type of habits. It's all encompassing, man.
Gotcha. Tell me, Travis, did you start to see, as you went on your, because as much as you're helping others, this is about your own path as well that you're on. You start talking.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if you sort of talk about, where you saw changes in your own life with relationships with your children and your wife.
Right on. So as I spoke about before, like what started this movement to begin with, like I was never present. I wasn't a present husband. I wasn't a present father. I was just really dropping the ball big time in those areas. And so it's still a work in progress today. But man, I've had so much growth and, so many lessons learned over time going through this process myself. And so what I talk about, I live every single day. So like this program that I'm able to give other men and have them go through, I need it just as bad as they do because I live it on a day-to-day basis, right? So it's like I was saying, the process is really the result. If you can imagine that, like every single day, like it doesn't matter what you did yesterday. Yesterday is yesterday. If you won yesterday, great. Guess what? We get another opportunity today to win another day, right? And so for me, the program has really just helped me become a better individual as a whole, just more aware of how my relationship is with my wife.
Yeah.
That's a whole separate relationship that we have with our kids. And so it's like God, you, your wife, your kids, then your friends, relationship wise, right? And so it's helped tremendously for me to keep things in line and never let myself drift back to where I was before. Because I don't even recognize that man anymore, to be honest with you.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. That is a good thing. Yeah. So you should be able to look back like every year. And one of my mentors talked about this. He's like, if every year you get to January and you're kind of reflecting back on the past year, if you look back at yourself and you feel as if it is a splitting image of who you are today, then can you really say that past year was a success? Because we're supposed to be growing and ascending and expanding, all the time. Because you brought up the word balance earlier, right?
Yeah.
Is balance even a real thing? Is that something that we truly want to strive for? Because if you, and I heard it put this way, I can't remember where I heard this first, but true balance means there is no movement at all.
Okay.
So if I had a pencil and I was to put it on this desk and we were to balance it out perfectly, it means that it's just straight up and down. There is no movement.
Right.
Who wants to live a life like that where there's absolutely no movement? We already know that's impossible.
Sure.
We're either going forward or we're going backwards. And so that's why you choose progress. Progress. That is the process, right? So just continuing to get better, reflect, redo. And it's like I mentioned, it's a game. It's a game. Every day you show up, we get to play this game.
What I find interesting, Travis, and just listening, and I really appreciate stuff you're talking about and sharing. I mean, as a father myself, I can also, you quite frankly, you've got me reflecting my own personal journey. Now, my kids are a little bit older, so, but still, I'm going back to, at that time, it's like, okay, so was I present? And sometimes the only real way of knowing how present you were, or involved you were, or active you were, is kind of feedback that you get, right? Because really, is it enough? If your children are getting enough of you, or your wife's getting enough of you, right? They're not going to say, hey, right? But when they're not getting it, that's when you'll get that feedback, right? And so, I can reflect on different points in my life where I was like, oh yeah, I got that. But I think where I was fortunate enough, I was able to make that course correction, right? And say, okay, here's what I got to shape up and get better. It's not something I wouldn't say it's something that I was taught. I just kind of learned it. And I'm wondering then, for you, how did you learn to make the course corrections that you did?
So it just really comes back to that awareness that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
And so another thing that we do, I'm happy that you brought this up, because course correction is needed at all times.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, we're either going forward or we're going backwards.
Yeah.
So something that we do every single week, we call it the weekly facts. We stop and we reflect on the past week. So there's different things that we're tracking, the core 5 that I talked about earlier. We're tracking those things. And so we're looking at our fitness, our fuel. We're looking at, hey, was our temperament, did we maintain control of our attitude all week?
Right.
Our frame. How well was our focus? How present were we with family? And so if we have lower scores on any of those one things, then we really start to reflect on that a little bit more. Okay, why was that the case? Most guys are going to be quick to point the finger outwards. Well, it was this, it was that, it was somebody else, anything else but themselves, right? So rule number 1, just backing up to preface all this, is like, you need to take ownership, full ownership, right? Like, if things are going good, take ownership over that. If things are not going good, take full ownership over that, right? And so when you reflect on these things and you're like, okay, how could that get better? How can I act differently in a similar situation if it comes up again in the next week? You kind of put yourself into those spots so we can be better, right? So I feel like it's really just a process of stopping, reflecting, and then revision, tighten up the plan, tighten up, what it is that you need to, and then redo. And that's where the rinse and repeat comes in, right? So it's like reflection, revise, redo. Every single week, every single week, every single week.
Yeah. And it just, rinse and repeat. Absolutely. Rinse and repeat. Any kind of, wondering about, lessons as you've gone through this process, what any ones that stand out in your mind that you really go, wow, this is big.
I think it's really your ability to cope with the stresses that we deal with, going back, looking at everything that we have on our plate. So we have duties as a dad, we have duties as a husband, we have duties as a professional, managing people, but then also all these duties for yourself. And it really does start with you. So you need to be as selfish in a certain manner that you're able to fill your own cup. It's interesting, and I'll shift people's perspective a lot. because I'll have conversations with fellow dads and they're all these things like business owner, dad, husband, but they're dropping the ball with their fitness. What's going on here? Oh, I'm too busy for that. And if I sneak away to go to the gym for an hour, that's taking away time from my family. And what's really selfish? You taking a little bit of time to fill your cup so you can be better, you can have better health, better energy, better focus with your family when you're with them, or putting that off because it's selfish, then showing up not as your best self, showing up with low energy, showing up as the angry dad or the short-tempered dad because you haven't put that time and effort into yourself. That's selfish. If you continue to let that go, right? And so I feel, you need to build yourself up with that so you do show up better in the world. And what I mentioned before is it's your ability to cope with stress. So we have these self-induced stresses that we put ourselves through. Wake up early, go through your fitness routine, whatever that is. Embrace those discomforts. Stick and remain disciplined to fueling your body with high quality food and, taking in the appropriate amounts, that sort of thing. All the disciplines, all the discomforts that we build through that, we're building our capacity to deal with other stresses. And so when things do get a little bit out of hand, you don't react in a certain way where you blow your top off, right? That's one of the things that we were talking about earlier today, and I'm guilty as charged. I look back a couple of months ago, one of my daughters were having like a scuffle, and I was just on edge. Boom, I blew up. I yelled at them, and I saw the looks on their faces. I was like, man, I felt bad about it afterwards. I like regretted it instantly. Saw the look on their faces. I don't want that to happen again. And I reflected on that moment. And the reason that I blew up, it wasn't because they were fighting and scuffling and screaming and yelling. It wasn't them. It's because I hadn't taken care of something prior. I was lazy. I had put something off, within business. I was like, I was still kind of like worrying about it, stressed out, anxiety, that sort of things. And then boom, you react emotionally. And so when you take care of your stuff, the things that you need to do, you're going to put yourself in a much better position to handle certain situations much, much better. So we don't have those regrets.
Right. Well, certainly it sounds that way. And like I said, I just, love the journey that you're on. Out of curiosity, what was your relationship with your father like?
With my father, man, my dad, he was the one who instilled hard work in me. He put me to work, right? So, and I'm so grateful that he did. He never handed me anything, and he was my hero. He still is. So my dad was a very hardworking individual. Was always involved in construction. So my grandpa had a construction company, which my dad then branched off, started his own construction company. So he put me to work fairly young. But even before that, so always involved in athletics, I wrestled, played football, baseball, continued on in college with baseball and football, and then played a little bit of pro football after that. Yep. But we back all the way up to wrestling. So my dad was a collegiate wrestler. He walked on to Nebraska and earned a scholarship at Nebraska for wrestling. But when I was in 4th grade, that's when I started wrestling. And something that has always stuck with me was he was like, it's just you versus the other guy. So there's nowhere to hide. There's no teammate to blame. If this guy messed up, it's his fault. Everything is on you. So you never want to show up overpowered. Who put in more work before the match, right? Like put yourself in a position where you've done all that you can. There are no boxes unchecked. You builds up that confidence, right?
Yep.
And I won't go into it too much, but I was kind of a mental midget through high school with wrestling. I choked in certain moments, gotcha. But I definitely had the skill set from an athletic side of things. Like nobody outworked me, and that started at a very young age. So my dad got me into like push-ups and, doing pull-ups, going to run sprints. And I would do that stuff on my own. Like I'd skip out on going to the pool during the summer to go run hill sprints by myself. I'd just ride my bike to the park. I'd run my hill sprints, and then I'd meet my buddies over at the pool, So, but yeah, I had a great mentor in my dad, which I'm excited for my son to be born, so I can serve as that mentor for him and even for my daughters,
Sure.
So.
Sure. I just love the idea of passing along what's passed to you, right?
Yeah.
Continue that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Travis, man, I love this, man. This is so awesome, and the work you're doing for fathers and really making a difference for fathers everywhere. I guess if there were sort of a long-term vision or goal, what would that be? What were you looking to do?
What's interesting you mentioned that is, I'll see some businesses, they'll be like, we got a 1 billion member goal or whatever, or 1 million.
Right.
I used to think that way years ago. And actually one of my mentors got me into this, and it's just always being present in the moment, fully connected to the movement. I'm going to continue to show up and put in the work, and I'm going to continue to live and embody what it is to be a forged father and an uncommon man, with the sole goal to inspire and impact other men, so that whether they join me or not, they can go out and inspire and impact even more people. So that's really the goal of it. We got an amazing movement as it is, and so we'll continue to grow that and continue to do what we've been doing there. But yeah, it's just once you get into that lifestyle and once you kind of step into that role, it's to never stop.
Amazing.
To never stop, man.
Amazing. Well, it's so great to hear. Congratulations on a fantastic job and the work that you're doing with fathers all over. For individuals who want to learn more about you or connect with you, where can we send them?
Gosh, you can go to easiest way to get started. If you want to find out more about what we're doing, go to destroydadbod.com.
Okay.
There's a free resource that I have linked up there that actually leads to even more resources. So we got plenty of free stuff as far as just education and sharing a little bit more about what it is that we do, how we do it. So that's one of the ways. And then the other way is just Instagram. You can find me at the Forged Father on Instagram. So I'm constantly posting content on my Instagram page, and then within my stories, you can really start to kind of go behind the scenes of what I do on a day-to-day basis and just family life and different things like that. So
I love it so much. Again, the idea of helping individuals live that best audacious lives ever. I mean, be the best audacious dad you possibly can be. And
yes,
so
sir.
I think that's why having you here was fantastic. Thank you for the time, Travis. This has been awesome. And keep up the great work.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks again for having me on and giving me this opportunity just to share what's been going on.
No problem, man. Be well.
Yeah.
Back we are here on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to Travis for stopping by and sharing really how he changed his life and that of so many other fathers, what the uncommon man movement is all about and all the great stuff that's going on in his world. So congrats on all you're doing, Travis. It's fabulous work, fantastic stuff. Certainly keep it up, my friend, for sure. I appreciated so much of what Travis had to share, but if there's just one thing that I would take from the chat that we just had, it would have to be this. Fathers are an integral part of the family unit, and their presence and involvement are crucial for the development and well-being of their children. In recent years, there's been a shift towards recognizing the significance of fathers and their role in the parenting process. And I think it's important that we collectively continue to promote the benefits of their involvement. One of the main advantages of fathers being present in the family unit is that they contribute to the emotion, not only just the emotional, but social development of their children. There are studies that have shown that children with involved fathers, fathers who are present, active, engaged, are more likely to have better academic performance, higher self-esteem in the way they feel about themselves, and much fewer behavioral problems than children who do not have a present or an active father figure in their lives. Furthermore, if that wasn't enough, fathers who are present in the family can serve as an important role model and mentors for their children. They can provide guidance, support, and encouragement while helping to develop the children's overall self-confidence and a sense of identity. Additionally, fathers can help their children develop important life skills, and that's so critical in this day and age. Things such as problem solving and decision making, and when fathers can do that by engaging with them in activities that require these skills. Apart from being beneficial to the children, fathers who are present and involved in the family can also experience positive outcomes. They tend to have a much better mental health, and certainly the levels of stress are drastically decreased, as well as improved relationships with both their spouses and children. Similarly, families that have involved fathers tend to be more stable, with stronger bonds, and the communication between all family members is absolutely present. So again, being an involved father, being an uncommon man, being a driven dad is absolutely critical. And it's important to recognize that it's solely not about being just present in the household, but also being present emotionally and actively engaged with family. We've reached the end of another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. I want to say thank you again for being here, all those lovers of Audaciousness. I appreciate the ongoing support of this podcast. It is your energy, your life, and your love that keep this thing going. So thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.